didn't see her. I realised you were filming everything.
Yeah, I thought I'd just start getting some footage now before the fun begins.
Right.
This is so exciting.
Right. Oh, so.
She's just going to say organise while I introduce it. Okay.
Well, we've been here. We came the week before when there was a big storm. We were the only ones here.
Right, this is going to be a fun changeover, isn't it?
This is really funny.
Oh no, can you go down? Sorry. That's it.
Bryndis, is it in frame? Am I in frame?
Yeah.
Is that well set up? It's like really dramatic with the trees.
Yeah, it's a bit dark, but it's fine. It'd be good if we had a bounce for the sun.
And I've got to protect my voice. Hello, women! Welcome to Women's Say. It's nearly 3 years since the infamous attack at Hyde Park Corner. So today is about reclaiming our space. We were hoping there would be no trouble, and by the looks of things, there are no trouble. So fingers crossed, we'll have a nice peaceful day where we can all come and speak about being a woman in 2020. If you're on Facebook or Twitter, the hashtag is Women Say. If you still want to speak, Julia Long is going around with a clipboard. I think there's still time slots available if you want to speak. We're going to have people speaking for about 3 minutes each, so not too long, not too short, not too short. I'm going to get off now and let the speeches begin. But remember, hashtag Women Say if you're on Twitter. That's what we're using. Yay!
Happy International Women's Day, all of you. I understand there was an event in London yesterday, over somewhere around the South Bank, where they celebrated International Women's Day by having a load of men who pretend to be women by dressing up in their rather sexist and misogynist fantasy of what a woman is, and those men pretty much led the show at that supposed International Women's Day event. I am absolutely delighted that this will not entertain such nonsense here today. So I want to thank Bryndis Allen, I want to thank the wonderful women of Make More Noise for organising another absolutely inspired event where we reclaim not only our right to speak here at the iconic venue of Speaker's Corner, but we also stand in the footsteps of the suffragettes, for whom, again, Hyde Park was an absolutely key place for their campaign. So I think it's a huge honour to be speaking here, and I hope that all of us women here will take that honour, take it by the horns and come and stand on these steps, because I tell you, it feels pretty fantastic to do that. So don't be shy, no place for shyness on International Women's Day. Whatever you want to say, there's nothing wrong. Whatever you want to say, come and get it off your chest. I guarantee you feel a lot better once you've done that. So, what I want to say are a few words that I've said before, but I think they bear saying again. And I wanted to summon the voice of Andrea Dworkin, who I have referenced on a few occasions before when I've spoken on this topic. Andrea Dworkin, around 40 years ago, wrote a rather wonderful and at the same time absolutely terrible, in the sense of terrifying, book called Pornography, Men Possessing Women. When she wrote her analysis of pornography, she didn't begin that book with a preface saying, I am not porn phobic, or I support pornographers' rights, or I wish to have a respectful debate with pornographers. She didn't do that. She didn't even begin that book by talking immediately about pornography. She opened that book with a really crucial preface in which she spoke about male power. And I would suggest that any time any of us are in that privileged position of being invited to speak in a public domain, maybe on the radio, maybe on TV, maybe in some other public domain, where we are introduced as speaking on a debate about transgender rights, we remember that the crucial thing to talk about is male power. And if we do that, I think we'll find it a lot easier not to fall into the many traps that will be laid for us in the course of such an opportunity. So I would suggest that if we are invited to speak on this rather fictitious topic of supposed transgender rights, that we take a lesson from Andrea Dworkin's preface, and we don't begin by reassuring the listener, I am not transphobic, I support trans rights, I want to have a respectful debate, but we begin by thinking and speaking about the nature of male power. And Andrea Dworkin said that there were 7 aspects of male power. Now, we have got a fairly tight program of speakers, so I'm not going to go over all of those 7 different aspects now, but I'm going to talk about 2 of them that I think are particularly crucial. One, she begins by saying, under patriarchy, under a system of male domination, men have the power of self. And I think if we think about what men in their fantasy, in their costume of what they think a woman is, what they are doing is attempting to expand their definition of their self so that it completely violates every space, every right, every aspect of language that we have fought hard for, that they will plonk themselves right in the middle of that. And that is what they are trying to do, and that is what they absolutely will do unless we see and understand that that is what is going on. And so we begin what we are saying, not with a whole stream of apologies, but with a very clear understanding that what we are talking about is male power and male domination. And what Andrea Dworkin said about the male power of self, which is maybe something that not all of us have thought about particularly, but she says that it is a self that needs constantly to expand itself, and no matter how much it has, it's never enough, and no matter how small women shrink to be, what we have is always too much and will be taken away from us. And I think we need to understand transgenderism in that context with those insights, because the small little patch of ground that we have is now being framed as being too much and that it must be taken away from us. She also spoke very profoundly about what she calls the male power of naming. And the important thing to understand about that is that under patriarchy, men don't just decide what we can say, how we can say it. They also decide what we can think. They control, if you control the language, you control perception. So when a man in a dress, in a wig, and a makeup, and a corset, and all the rest of it says, I am a woman, he is attempting not just to coerce and force you into accepting his version of reality, he is also trying to control your perception so that you are not even allowed to think that he is actually a man. I say this because having been involved in this area of struggle, an area of asserting ourselves for quite a number of years now, I still see, rather disappointingly, a lot of women falling into the traps that have been set. So, in the spirit of Andrea Dworkin, I would like to commend all of us now who want to come up and take the platform to be very mindful of the nature of male power, the nature of the male power, and in this case, the supposed transgender power of language, which we've seen has taken over pretty much all our public institutions, the political domain, the social domain, the educational domain, and we have to, as Dawkins said, we have to be like, as Prometheus stole fire from the gods, we have to steal back the power of naming from those men. Have a fantastic afternoon, everyone. So, who's next? Where's my shoes?
Any men?
Yay!
Anyone who's neither? I'm Maria McLachlan and I'm delighted to be back here at Speaker's Corner. One of my favourite places in the world, a place of many good memories, one or two bad ones. I first started coming here as a teenager in the 1970s, and I would wander around looking at the people on the soapboxes shouting, and I would think, they're insane. A bit like that bloke who was up here earlier. Never imagined I'd be one of them. But it was on one of those Sundays as a teenager that just after I left Speaker's Corner, I wandered down Park Lane. I eventually reached the ramp to the tunnel to get across the road. And I was already walking down it when I saw him, the man looking at me with his penis proudly poking through his dirty raincoat. Now, there's something in my DNA that prevents me from doing the sensible thing and retreating from danger. Instead, I sauntered past him casually as if I hadn't even noticed, entered the tunnel, turned the corner, ran like the clappers, and emerged at what I thought would be the other side of the road, only to find myself on the island in the middle of Park Lane, trapped by heavy traffic. I was only a kid and I was terrified. And I'm not going to say how that story ended because that's not what's important here. The reason I'm telling you it is because when I came back here 2.5 years ago in September 2017 and found protesters shouting and trying to drown out our voices, I remembered that man, and I've remembered him every time I've seen protesters shouting outside feminist meetings, entitled willy wavers who get off on trying to intimidate women. But the very worst thing that I feel at the moment is about the number of women who are themselves supporting, excusing, enabling, and even participating in the kind of abuse and trying to silence other women. How galling is it that so many senior women politicians, whether they're Tory or Labour or Lib Dem or Green or SNP, so many of them, the one thing they have in common is their support for a policy that would reduce womanhood to an idea, a feeling, a performance, a thing that any man can be, even men who've used their penises to rape women and girls.
Shame! Shame!
How sickening is it that the most vocal supporters of that psychopath of a woman beater who goes by the name of Tara Flick Wolf are women?
Shame!
From groups like those nutty anarchists at Freedom News and Sisters Uncut, and he said recently that he wanted to smash my face in proper. Why are so many women still so desperate for male approval that they are willing to throw other women to the wolves and flush our hard-won rights down the pan? Sisters, I know I'm not the only one who sometimes despairs, who feels despondent, but there is one thing I never feel. I never, ever feel like giving up. The lies, the abuse, the defamation, the harassment so many of us have had to endure is enough to make sure of that. We will win this fight because we are strong and they are not. You only have to use a pronoun they don't like for them to be blubbing into their baby shams and talking about violence and murder. We will win because we stand for the truth and they do not. We use reason and evidence and they do not. We are rational and they are a bunch of crackpots. We are on the right side of history and they are not. Stay strong, sisters.
Oh, where's she gone? Dr. M, hello. Oh.
You can just go up 2 if you want.
Stable, honest
Happy International Women's Day.
Louder!
Happy International Women's Day. I've decided to celebrate by exercising my Article 10. I do it in the history of the suffragettes, because it was after the Peterloo Massacre that speeches like this and public gatherings like this was banned, and the first people to bring that back and shine into law, it was women, it was the suffragettes. So we have a long history of righting wrongs in this country. Now, I have a gut feeling that the ideology that's being taught to children that has got policy capture in all our institutions is wrong. Any ideology that goes against the Human Rights Act, the United Nations treaties on the rights of the child, CEDAW 1979, the Equality Act, something's iffy about that. Who takes umbrage with equality? Who takes umbrage with children having rights to grow up and to be unmolested? And there's a reason they're silencing us at the moment. Women have a long history of being whistleblowers, of saying, hang on a sec, that's not right. And what we have is we have a perfect opportunity for grooming. It's put it into schools. We have children that are keeping secrets from their caregivers. This is opening them up to dangerous predators, not all men, not all trans, but we're walking into an atrocity. These children are exhibiting online that they have low sexual boundaries. They're willing to talk to people they don't know in forums about their breasts, about how they're uncomfortable with their bodies. Then we have people going in saying, I'll get you a binder, but I need your address. I need your telephone number. Now we have a child who has low sexual boundaries, speaking to strangers online, giving out their address. And these adult men, they're getting cheered on by our education system, cheered on by our councils, who said they learned lessons last time. Well, they haven't. They've just learned how to ignore them again. And I, for one, am going to speak and speak loudly, and I will not shut up about how children are in danger, and it is not okay. Thank you. I'd like to get down now, it's a bit too high for me.
It's Kara Dansky, and I serve on the board of the Women's Liberation Front. It's wonderful to be here. The title of this very short talk is Women's Speech is a Threat to Male Supremacy, and that is a very good thing. There are three key pieces of this: women, speech, and the threat to male supremacy. First, women. Literally everyone on the face of the planet knows what a woman is. All of the men making all of the laws for thousands of years certainly knew what the word woman means when they were excluding us from all aspects of civil society. Why the sudden confusion? It's because feminists have been effective in fighting for our rights. No man ever pretended to be a woman when women weren't allowed to vote. Second, speech. Posey is always telling Americans to value our First Amendment because no one else has anything like it. She's right, of course. I am mindful that the corner in which I stand is now the only place where free speech truly exists in the UK. I am grateful that as an American woman, I have the right to speak freely in my own country, though that is also under threat. As some of you may know, Wolf recently hosted an event at a public library that was nearly shut down by misogynists who do not think that women ought to be able to talk with one another. That is literally what is happening today. People are telling women that we are not allowed to speak. We need international solidarity on the issue of women's free speech, regardless of whether the restrictions on our speech are being imposed by government entities or by private entities like Twitter and Facebook. Third, the threat to male supremacy. Men know that if women are permitted to speak freely, the jig will be up, because nothing is truly too dangerous for a free people to discuss and speak about openly. That is why they try to shut us up. That is why women are being kicked off social media and why women like Maya Forstater are being fired. Last night, I watched the film Iron-Jawed Angels. It's a relatively unknown film about the American women's suffrage movement in general and about Alice Paul in particular. Alice Paul came to London in 1907 and she learned a lot. She learned a lot about the fight for suffrage for British women. She returned to America determined to be a leader in our movement. In 1912, she went to Philadelphia to meet with a movement elder to ask permission to form a committee in Washington, D.C. The elder woman said something along the lines of, "What did you learn from those British radicals? You aren't going to be engaged in any hooliganism, are you?" Paul replied, "Oh no, certainly not." Paul, however, had indeed learned a great deal from you British radicals. She went on to engage in a tremendous amount of hooliganism, and thanks to her, American women have the 19th Amendment. The point of all of this is to say, never stop speaking, women. Our speech is a threat to male supremacy, and men know it. That's why they're so afraid of our voices, and they should be. In closing, Wolf co-founder Lear Keith has a message for all of us. Never surrender. Thank you.
I'm American too. You're very lucky here to have the British Museum, and I was so thrilled to see all the goddesses. I thought maybe I could make an entire alphabet of goddesses, and it goes something like this. A, you're an Amazon, Amaterasu, a cat named Bast, and Coatlicue. Delta, Europa, Freya, Gaia, Frigg, Heresy, Hecate, Isis on a pig, Juno, Kali, Lilith, Maria, Namu, O is the oracle is overthrow, Persephone, Queen, Protectus Kuan Yin, Rhiannon on a white horse, and the riddle of the Sphinx, Te Upo Otonofiti, and the Cobra Uji. Me, Virgo, Diana, Wild Witches, Walpurgisnacht, Santos Harpy flying, Y is a crooked letter, and C is the zodiac. Hey! Hey!
I am Jess from Norwich. Mother to a beautiful daughter, 22 years old. I thought that I could kind of relax a bit when I hit middle age, and then when I saw that the dictionary definition of woman became a political act of defiance, I bought the bloody sweatshirts. And I said to my daughter, I can't believe it, and neither could she. It was unbelievable. I thought, if they're coming for that, they're coming for everybody. I also realised that when I'm up for a disciplinary with the Green Party on March 28 to possibly be expelled or suspended for co-organising a women's meeting, then I knew that we were in trouble. When my daughter took part in a human library activity where she was groomed by two men who identified as women, she came home and she said, "I'm genderqueer." She was 15 years old, autistic spectrum. If you want to read her blog, it's Incessant Sentinel, Surviving the Cult of Queer. 3 months later, she came home and she said, "Oh my God, they're a bunch of pervs and weirdos." This is a child who was looking up online about chest binders. I knew that girls and women were in trouble, but today, I don't feel in trouble. I actually feel really uplifted. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for staying, everyone. Sorry it's so bad.
Posey, hold the umbrella. What is it? Some idiot men's
Drown us out.
Hello,
It can rain on us, but it can't drive us away. Well, I'm going to speak very briefly about something I know a great deal about. Periods. Only women have periods. Back in the 80s, I was a bus driver in London.
Oh God,
I was a bus driver in London. I was an active trade unionist. This was about 1986. And I discovered that women weren't being treated with decency when it came to having periods. Over that time, and in the early 90s, councils were closing down public toilets so that for women, bus drivers or conductors had nowhere to go when they had their period particularly, and weren't being treated with decency, and I would say their human rights were being breached. They couldn't go somewhere after driving for 5 hours to sit on a toilet, to remove their tampon or change their sanitary towel. They flooded in their seats. Now, when I approached the union about bringing this up, they were completely unaware, because most unions back then were run by men and they didn't really understand where I was coming from. So I started this campaign to basically to lobby and try and stop the closure of public toilets that were generally at the end of a bus route, where the woman driver could go and sit in peace, you know, on a toilet for 10 minutes or whatever, gather her thoughts, clean herself up and get back on the road. Women then as well were being penalised when there were none of these toilets to use for going into the likes of McDonald's. They were being dragged into managers' offices. You know, why were you running your bus late? Well, because I had my period and I had to go to the toilet. This wasn't accepted. And still today, women are being penalised in workplaces for having periods. They're being disciplined. They're being stigmatised or whatever for having something, for being born female, for being women and having a normal bodily function. And this has to end. But now we have a further fight, don't we? Because not only haven't we got the toilets to sort of like use, we're told that we need to bloody well share them. No way. Which is absolutely and utterly disgusting, because young women now are being prevented from carrying out their own young lives, going to school, going to colleges, for fear of having to share their spaces, and the embarrassment of having a period or maybe flooding, which men, you know, clearly don't know anything about, which is a terrible, awful, embarrassing situation to be in. So, that's it really.
Hi! Alright, I'm forever the optimist, so I've still got my sunglasses on my head. It's not complicated, is it? It's not complicated to recognise a man and a woman. It's not complicated to understand that someone with a penis is male and doesn't belong in women's issues, women's rights and women's spaces. And I use the word woman when talking about rights because that's what I'm talking about, because that's what I want to protect. I am a woman. I understand what it means to be a woman. I walk down the street and everybody else on the street understands that I'm a woman. I'm absolutely sick and tired of anybody placating these men who we all know to be perverts. Yes! We know that they are trying to get in our schools to corrupt the children's minds, so before they understand what they need to... It's so awful, I'm sorry about the way. Before these children are old enough to trust their instincts and to recognise the perverts in front of them, they are trying to eradicate their intuition. They are trying to make it okay for a porn-sick adult man to stand in front of them in drag queen makeup and practically touch them up. Yeah. So what we need to do is you need to take a stand, you need to stop being afraid, you need to stop thinking, am I a bad person for saying, keep that man away from my children? No. Keep those ideas away from my children. Keep that man out of my space. Keep naming men as men, never submit and never surrender. Oh, look at the... I'm just going to swear.
So happy to be here. No. It is such a shame that women and children are frightened to speak out these days. I had to take my 9-year-old out of school to homeschool him because of the situation with the education in our schools, with mermaids going into schools and training teachers that it's acceptable to ask young children where they are on a trans scale, what gender they think they might be. My 17-year-old daughter is just finishing her A-levels, has an unconditional place at Oxford Brookes University, and I am worried sick about, as a young lesbian, her space is being eradicated, about her language being taken away from her, and about how these young women are being indoctrinated into thinking that it's fine to include these men into their spaces when it isn't. They're men, they're not women, they're not biological women, and they never will be. And that's all really.
Kate! Hello! Hello! My name's Kate Kiss, and I'm a horse trainer from West Wales, and I've brought Welsh weather with me. Now, I've been training horses for 40 years, and I have never come across a mare who has turned into a stallion because they are mammals, and it is impossible for mammals to spontaneously grow the sexual organs of the opposite sex. Now, I have got my favourite mare, Betty Boo, and I could, possibly, if I was a terrible person, persuade a vet to inject her with testosterone, which may make her exhibit stallion-like behaviour. And he could also slice off some of her flesh and fashion a tube and attach it to her urethra, and she would indisputably be an incredibly messed up horse. But she would not be a stallion. Now, the vet, I doubt, would ever do this, and the RSPCA would no doubt prosecute me for animal cruelty. But we'd never do this to children, would we? No. Well done.
Rachel Bosen-Turfer. Because I'm angry. Right, I'm wearing this t-shirt because I want to say something about mothers. Okay? Wrote it down because my memory's rubbish, because I'm a mother. Okay. Sometimes there seems to be a bit of a conflict between women who are mothers and women who aren't mothers. I don't think this is our conflict as women. I think it's created by living in a man's world where everything we do is wrong. If we're mothers, we're wrong. If we're not mothers, we're wrong. So we're always made to feel inadequate. To go back to the wonderful Andrea Dworkin and to paraphrase, feminism is for all women, even the ones you're not absolutely sure about. So I would like everyone to think about their relationship with women who are mothers and women who aren't mothers, and how they go forward with that in sisterhood. And I'd also like to remind everybody, not all women are mothers, all mothers are women, including Freddie. And you can't be a mother if you're not a woman. Thank you.
Sad times. And here you all are, and it's absolutely brilliant to see you. So all I want to talk about is where did this little problem that we're having with transgenderism come from? Back in the 1970s, I was involved in forming the first anti-pornography group in London. And in the late 1970s, we were fighting against paedophilia. There was an attempt, oh dear, there was an attempt by a group of gay men's organisations, the Paedophile Information Exchange, Gay Activists Alliance, to remove the age of consent entirely or reduce it to 4 years old. We fought it, and we fought it successfully. That did not happen. We were also pretty successful in fighting pornography in those days. Then there was a huge backlash. Now, even before the pornography industry got going, men had paraphilias, fetishes, strange forms of abusive behaviour which always caused terrible harm to women and children. What happened when the sex industry got going, pornography expanded, and then the internet was developed, is that these fetishes were supercharged. Men created communities online, networks that made them feel very good about everything that they were doing. They came out of their bedrooms. They stopped just ejaculating in front of their computer screens and decided they wanted to be in public. They wanted women and children to witness and actually help them express their fetishes. Now, the main fetish we're having to deal with at the moment is transvestism, men wearing women's clothes because they're masochistically excited by doing so, and they want to do that everywhere the women are, so women are a captive audience so that they can get ejaculations. But there's more than that going on. Earlier this week, on Radio 4 on the Today programme, the naturists came out. Now, the naturists said that they wanted to make it a hate crime if, when they were expressing their ejaculation and fetishes and nakedness in public places, in a park, or meeting somebody who was going walking, if that person, usually a woman, said something rude to them, that woman should be prosecuted for a hate crime. Okay, so now indecent exposure, which somebody was talking about from this stage only a moment ago, they want it legalised so that it is a hate crime to object to it. Also, the paedophilia that we fought in the late 1970s has now become minority-attracted persons. So all of the fetishes that we once managed to put back in their boxes have been released onto the world that we are struggling as women to be in. And all of them are now acquiring rights. They are all communities of rights-bearing men who have the right to wave their willies at women, the right to dress up as women in the women's toilets, the right to use children sexually. These are now supposedly rights-bearing communities. But what's fantastic is, even though we had a bad time for 2 decades, you are all here. And we are fighting back hugely and very successfully at this moment. So it's lovely to be here at a moment of this kind with all of you. Thank you. Jean Malloy.
A great thing then!
Who's raping anybody? I wouldn't be paid to rape you people. Not one of you are attractive. They're all looking like me.
I haven't really got anything prepared, but I wanted to stand up and speak because old habits die hard, and men have been silencing women for thousands of years and telling us that our voices don't count and our words aren't as valuable as theirs. And we have to sit down and listen to them and let them define our reality and let them define what a woman is and what a man is. And I think it's really, really important that in this place, Speaker's Corner, where there is a tradition of free speech, that women get up and speak and just say, no, we will not be told by men what a woman is, and we will not be silenced by these lunatics over there. And we just won't shut up, and we won't go away, and we won't sit down, and we won't make you a fucking sandwich. So that's all I've got to say.
And I just wanted to say I'm wearing this t-shirt because I'm a lesbian grandmother. And I've got two granddaughters, one who's 9 and one who's 16, and they're both in school. And you may know that this is the year when the enforcement of the male rights religion of gender identity is being, teachers are being forced to teach this in schools. That means that neither of my granddaughters will have an opportunity to become lesbians because they are being told that any girl that looks like a dyke is really a boy and is really a man, and there are more and more young lesbians in schools being erased because they're being told that they're really boys. And we're trying to oppose this by setting up, one of the things we've been trying to do is setting up a young lesbian project in London, and we applied for funding to a well-known charity that had also funded single-sex groups. But did they give us a grant? No. Why not? Because we're lesbians and the trans activists wouldn't like it. Because we would keep out boys who define themselves as lesbians. Lesbians do not have penises. Yay! And that's all I want. Just look out, because just to say the last thing, we're going to be doing a crowdfunder to try and fund this project. So look out for it on Facebook, because if they won't fund us, we're asking all you women to help us to fund us and to allow young lesbians to exist and not be erased.
Right, hello! Hi. Some of you might know me from Twitter under my moniker DJ Lippy. But they kept banning me, so I made Make More Noise. And now this is what we do. If you kick us off Twitter, get into the real world, women, because this is where it's really about. I was hoping to do some comedy songs today. I used to have a previous life as a stand-up, but Venice told me there's no entertainment allowed at Speaker's Corner. Go on, Katie, go on. So I'm going to do one joke, yeah, but you're not allowed to laugh. Stop laughing! We won't, don't worry. Right. What's the difference between a radical feminist and a lesbian? About 6 months! I'm going to do one more because I have to do something quite serious. What's a rad fem's favourite fruit? What's a radical feminist's favourite fruit? We don't know. Mango! Alright, enough, alright. Right, so I'm going to read out a manifesto. We We wrote a manifesto when we started our blog because we thought it was good to start out with a punch and state what you're all about. So here it goes. 1. Women are oppressed because of their bodies, i.e. sex, and their ability to create new life. 2. Gender is a social construct which makes women's inferiority to men seem natural. It must be abolished. 3. There is a covert global trend to replace sex with gender in law. This we must resist. 4. Women's labour within the family is invisible. Mothers and daughters deserve more. 5. Porn is anti-woman propaganda that is normalising rape and women's subjugation under men. 6. Sex work is not work. It exploits women and drives a global network of sex slavery. Women's bodies are not for sale. Ever. You can't buy emancipation. Liberation is not a brand of lipstick. 8. Mainstream feminism has abandoned women and serves only the needs of rich women and all men. 9. Right-wing men and left-wing men hate women equally. Women should stop providing them with their political labour. 10. Nice women don't make history. Fight back now. Make more noise. So I'm going to leave you with some homework. Helen's going around with some stickers with this on. If you can find a nice place to put it, maybe in a toilet somewhere women are sitting down thinking, having a little look. Take a picture, put it on Twitter, hashtag make more noise. That's your homework. Thank you.
And then Shelley. Well, I think this is a marvellously privileged position to be in, particularly as the weather has now cleared up a bit.
It's coming back.
I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be standing in a public place telling people that I had been the victim of fraud for 14 years of my married life. I am one of the vanishingly rare breed, sex, a trans widow. I have yet to find many of them, except on the Trans Widows Escape Committee. Bless you, Justine Roberts! I can tell a lot more people, and I had, thank God, the opportunity to tell the government directly when they did the consultation on changes to the Gender Recognition Act, what it was like to live for 14 years with one of these men, the father of our 2 children, who gradually, over this period, changed from being a considerate, intelligent, professional man into a raging, cut off, incredibly isolated teenager, rebellious teenager on a bad day, every day of the week, 24/7. I have never seen a mental condition like this. I think the world needs to know about it. This is not something you would wish on your worst enemy. I think we should tell children what they are letting themselves in for if they read online about gender fluidity. It has nothing to do with his physical capacity and everything to do with him being assaulted when he was a child by a relative, and an aunt encouraged him to cross-dress in his mother's clothes. I feel desperately sorry for him, but the torture that he inflicted on me, and you have read accounts, this is real, it happened to me too. That's why it has taken me since 2006 to get the courage to stand up in front of you, the courage to go online, the courage to get a Twitter handle and to say, we have a story to say, and all we want is that this punishment that has been meted out of a clear blue sky on me should be discussed, and then these men need to be treated. They need somebody, a consultant. I want the consultants to break ranks now. There are some who say that there is an underlying condition that needs to be treated. I agree. I want them to be treated with sympathy. I want them to be treated over a long period of time. I want them to be able to come to terms with their post-traumatic stress disorder or whatever it is that impedes them from recognizing the truth of their mental and bodily unity. The unity of living that is the essence of being a human being. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Shelley Charlesworth. I'm just here to say very, very briefly that if you haven't done this, you have a very, very important thing to do before the 17th of March, which is to respond to the consultation on the Scottish proposed reform of the Gender Recognition Act in Scotland. This reform is such a terrible, terrible proposal. It will allow self-ID within 6 months and lower the age at which this can happen from 18 to 16. Just think of it, a child of 16 and a half would be able to get a Gender Recognition Act. This would then open the gates to be able to go on and get surgery and take cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers. It is really important to do this because if this is passed in Scotland, it will have a knock-on effect in the rest of the UK, and it will be very, very deleterious for all women and children. There are loads of easy guides to do it. Transgender Trend, which I recommend, has both a link to the consultation and a guide to filling it in. There's also Fair Play for Women. So if you've done it, great, but tell everybody to do it, please. Yeah, ban the bill. Somebody's got leaflets over there. Go and get them and do it. Remember, St. Patrick's Day, you've got to have done it by then. Thank you.
I am Peggy Lewis from the United States, from the state of Vermont. I was a founding member of WOLF, and the first thing I want to do is thank the women in the UK for leading the way on this. It's been brilliant. I've learned so much watching Posey and Venice and Julia and Sheila, who I've been reading for years on this issue, and I had the experience of we do have free speech as an amendment in the United States, but the first time I've ever had my speech squelched was by the head of the Peace and Justice Center in my town, who objected to the fact that we had a conversation at a meeting about this issue, and had three police cars to keep me from going to an event because of it. So thank you very much to the women in the UK for what you've all been doing. Women is a term that is already occupied category. It is not an empty category for everyone to define, nor is feminism. Feminism is something with a history and a reality. It is not what anything that a woman decides to do is feminism because she's a woman. So it's not up for grab. The same young people that I find in the United States anyway, who speak of settler colonialism in the US, and they refuse to see their colonization of women, their appropriation of women's culture, even if and even appropriating feminism for the sex desires of men. We have a war against women, and we have no real women's movement, and this has been the most divisive thing I have ever seen in the women's movement. And we've had plenty of division in the women's movement before, but nothing like this. So many organizations I know have been destroyed over this issue. So I do not cede the word woman. I do not cede the word lesbian. I do not cede feminism to transactivism that defiles the word, the history, the culture, and the institution, that had no, and these are people who had no part in building that movement. They've never built anything on their own. They just want to take over women's shelters, women's places, women's everything. It's a parasitic movement, and I'm sick of it. And I'm sick of the authoritarianism it has brought. And I guess that's it. Just not ceding that word, not an empty category.
I'm coming here with a warning that something is coming to the NHS near you, so be vigilant.
In Bristol, where I live, a trans right activist who calls women TERFs, maniacs and an infestation has written trans guidance, which has been adopted by Bristol, South Gloss and North Somerset clinical commissioning groups. These are the policy makers for the NHS in each area. This guidance doesn't mention the needs of women or lesbians or any other of the groups who have protected characteristics. It advises, if any of you are getting ill, it advises that patients who don't want to be on a ward with someone of the opposite sex should be educated. Transphobia is the only reason, according to the guidance, that a female patient would not want a male patient in the same ward. The guidance stresses that trans staff must never be misgendered. It makes no mention of women's rights to request a woman practitioner. The only safeguarding concern raised for children and young people is that of unsupportive parents. According to the guidance, flattening chest tissue and tucking genitals is simply normal behaviour for a trans child. There is, luckily, this was passed with no risk assessment. It was passed and accepted by Bristol NHS. The only reason we found out about it was good old Mumsnet. Someone actually found out this was happening and posted something about it. A lot of us wrote letters of protest, and now we actually have a meeting with the clinical commissioning group. I will be speaking on behalf of the Lesbian Rights Alliance and Young Lesbians. The problem is, and what I'm saying, this is really a warning, this is happening by secret all over the country. A lot of clinical commissioning groups are now, they used to be called trusts, and because of many reorganisations, they are now the policy-making groups of the NHS. They work in secret, though they're supposedly open, so please do take notice. The NHS is always in the news at the moment, but not about the way, even though there's no funding for knee replacements, cataract operations, etc. There's loads of funding for young people to become trans and for men to get their impersonation of women underway if they want to. So that's all I want to say. Please be vigilant, watch out for what's happening in your area. Thank you.
Who's next? Line. Elizabeth! Oh, she's on time. Elizabeth's on time.
Okay, I have 2 points to make. One is about taxonomy, which is how we classify things, and one is about the environment, which I'm going to make as an environmentalist. It's interesting that everything else gets its own group, its own category, but for some reason women can't have our own category. And we can't have our own category because 1 in 1,000 has a medical disorder or DSD. Everything else gets its own category. And increasingly it's seeming to us that transgenderism is destroying taxonomy, the important method by which we categorize animals, plants, organisms, so that we can understand the relationships between things. And I think this is part of a very ecocidal, earth-killing, anti-environmental strategy to get us to dissociate from ourselves and also from the earth, so that if millions of people transition, as they're saying tens of millions of people are, all that synthetic, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, all that synthetic estrogen and all the synthetic testosterone pissed into the waterways, which are killing all the freshwater fish, are going to continue to do that. And when I said that 2 years ago in a meeting, Prick News said, who said that? because we're going to get her. It's like they don't want us to understand how transgenderism is not just destroying women, but gradually it's a dissociative process where they want to destroy the earth. And there's a lot I could say about that. I'm not going to say it now, but there's a lot of research being done into it and the capture of the environmental movement. So that last year, the Green Party program had more sessions about being non-binary than they did about fucking climate change. So it's just like, come on, you know, if you don't care about women, which I know you do, care about the earth, care about the environment, and care about what this is doing to our planet.
And Paula.
Yeah, hi everybody. I asked if I could have a few words because I hadn't planned to talk, but I asked if I could, and you very kindly allowed me to talk. And what I want to say is that I think we have a huge ally in this fight, and that we're really missing and not seeing that ally. And that ally is men. You know, it's a tiny minority of men who are doing this to us. And the vast majority of men are actually on our side. They don't like seeing men dressing up as women. They don't like seeing them going into our toilets. They feel as ashamed by it as we feel horrified. And this is a time when we all need to forget our differences and come together with men and stop slagging them off. So that's the main thing that I want to say, is that it's an ally. Men are an ally and a resource.
They need to speak up, Belinda, as well. They need to not be quite so shy as they've been up to now. They need to speak up a little bit.
But if you think about everything that I've been hearing, and it's why I came to speak, I have heard non-stop slagging off of men, not just men who want to dress up as women. I've heard non-stop, all the time I've been standing listening, we've been slagging off men. And it's time to stop doing this, because if we want them to join with us, we need to stop slagging them off and realise that they are our allies and take some responsibility ourselves for what has happened, because I can tell you that when I studied social anthropology, I was taught that there were no differences between men and women. I was taught this in the 1980s, and it was feminism that taught me that there were no differences between men and women, that it had all been created by culture. That is what I was taught by feminism. So we need to take responsibility for what we have done in creating this narrative, and we need to join together with men and fight this horror that is happening.
Thank you, Belinda. Thank you, Belinda. Thank you, Paula. Paula.
Hello, everybody. I'm Paula. At midnight, we launched a petition, we being a group called Women Uniting, and basically in October the Scottish National Party put out a pledge. I don't know if anybody read it, it was brilliant. It was a women's pledge from the SNP, and it was so inspirational and so clearly written, because our Scottish sisters know what the hell they're on about, that the Labour Party Women's Declaration was launched on the full moon in November. So we got over 4,000 signatures quite quickly, and we were followed by the Tory Party, the Women's Equality Party, the Lib Dems, and the Green Party. So whether you know it or not, there are women in all the political parties who put together pledges. Now I thought, we need to get together. So we did, and we've got a cross-party group. We went for Women Uniting as a, just as a I can't do this because I talk with my hands. It's gonna fall off. Right, bugger it, I'll lean. Okay, so Women Uniting launched the petition last night, and 6 hours later, Twitter have done that thing. So it's at Women Uniting UK, and we've aimed it at your average woman in the street, and men. Where's Belinda? And men, because men need to sign it. And what we want, and we've got Glynner on side with his millions of tweeting people, to join in, and we're actually petitioning the government to do 3 things. We couldn't do a government petition because the Tories haven't yet got their petition group together. So you know those YouGov petitions that you do? We can't do one yet, so we've gone for change.org, and basically it's to enshrine in law the word woman and the word sex, because all laws are based on words, and if we don't have the right definitions, all the laws fall by the wayside. So that was point 1. Point 2, there was a select committee that has been put together, and it's done all the work in explaining the Equalities Act exemptions. It's been done, the work has been done, but nobody seems to be using it. So that's the second point, to get them to do that. And the third thing is that no policy should be passed without it being tested out for its impact on 51% of the population.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well done, Paula. Woo! Dennis. Hello, I'm Jan from Object. Hello. We object to anything that uses a woman's body as an object. We are not men's punch bags. We are not men's cum dumpsters. And we are not men's territory to be colonised and erased as they have done to so much of the world. So we campaign on porn, prostitution, sex clubs, surrogacy and transgenderism. And we work with all the single issue campaigns who are prepared to work with us on these topics. Yesterday afternoon we were at the Park Theatre in Finsbury Park with the Haringey Resistors, who I'm delighted to see over there, campaigning about drag queen story time. Yay! You might be surprised to hear me mention surrogacy, but think about all those poor trans kids who have gone down that route, compromised their fertility and said, it's all right, I don't want kids. Many of us here thought that when we were teenagers. Funny how when you're 36 you want to pop one out. So surrogacy is already a $40 million business, and it's going to become greater as all these poor trans kids look for kids. We've got a conference coming up on Mother's Day, 22nd of March. Please come along, I know some of you are already. And please do not stop fighting against the patriarchy. It's a many-headed hydra. Yeah. You deal with one issue in one place and something else pops up somewhere else. So we object, and we hope you will too. Tegan. We're going to have Tegan, then we're going to have Dennis, then we'll have a photo opportunity, then we're going to wrap it up. So well done for enduring all the cold and the wind and the rain. Go on, Tegan.
I didn't intend to speak. I came here just to observe and join in, but silently. But I feel like some of the issues here has been that people have been silent on this issue for too long. People are scared to speak out, to talk to their friends and talk to their family about it. So I actually studied genetics at university, so I know quite deeply the differences between men and women. And having worked in science now for quite a few years, it's really scary to see the way that even in like scientific journals and stuff, it's all getting erased. That gender is replacing sex, and that no one's really paying any attention to it. The idea of having our laws replaced and having our the words change meaning, it's just going to make it all so much worse. So I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really come here intending to be on camera at all. That's...
Well, thank you too.
But I appreciate everyone who's come out here, and I just want to say that whilst it's scary right now, I think that it's going to make it a lot more difference if we can all speak to our friends and family about this.
Well done, thank you. Thank you, Tegan. Woo! That's what I want to take a picture of everyone. So I don't know if you can kind of get in the middle. Oh, I'm gonna have to do a panorama. A pano. Okay, everyone's got their happy faces. Is that right? Woo! Okay. Thank you so much for coming here today. And I'm going to have to read it from the speech. So, love is love. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Love is love. Nearly 3 years ago, trans activists came here to Speaker's Corner to stop us meeting and speaking with signs like trans misogyny is hate, never debate. In 21st century doublespeak, debate is hate. Men's sexual rights are love, and an attack on a 60-year-old, sorry Maria, a 60-year-old by a young man in makeup was portrayed by the media as a brawl. Trans rights are men's rights to our bodies, to our spaces, safety, privacy, legal protections, sports, language, and even our names. Trans rights means the right to lie about your sex, and transphobia is refuting that lie. Gender dysphoria is a hatred of women, be it the misogyny of the men who think that sexist stereotypes make them female, or the self-hatred of the growing number of girls and women who are trying to escape from these same oppressive gender roles. Yet it is us who are being intimidated, harassed, investigated, suspended, sacked, sued, arrested and convicted for hate speech, simply for standing up for and defining ourselves. We are discovering that freedom of speech is more free for men. Yeah. I think it's hateful to make a female prisoner share the communal showers with rapists. I don't think it's loving to force a child to call her father mum or her male teacher miss, or to trap a woman in a marriage with a husband who fancies himself as a lesbian. But I think that love and hate are subjective emotions that are no business of the state. And yet, we are told that love is love and debate is hate, and calling some men he is already criminalised. George Orwell must be turning in his grave, as must the suffragettes, who met here in huge numbers until they gained the right of political representation for women. We, the banned and censored on social media platforms owned by men, we must keep speaking and meeting in real life, on soapboxes, in hired halls and conference rooms, in nightclubs, book clubs, in the Houses of Parliament, in the law courts. And we must tell the truth, the whole truth, and no polite half-truths. Until we are protected in laws and every single institution that no man can become a woman, because a woman is an adult human female. Right, has everyone got the details for the pub?
Stand up again, stand up on the thing.
I don't want to say it on the live stream.
Oh, you don't
Crazy,
want to-
where's
oh.
the live stream? So do you want to turn it off?
We can just do it like telling each other, just whispering
Yeah,
each other
does
things.
everyone not know? Does anyone not know where we're going now? Okay.
I know, I'll tell you.
Come here if you don't know where we're going.
Thank you, Venice, thank you, make more noise!
And then it ends up destroying both parties.
But now we're in a situation where women can use their own inherent power, social power and cultural power, and act like a man. Whereas a man can still only act like a man.
But I think you're talking
unless
about...
he tries to be trans. That's a whole different conversation.
Do you
I think
think
we all agree on that one.
Do you think though that like men are really like if you accuse a man of sexual assault, do you think that they're unfairly penalised?
Yes.
Do you think?
Yes.
Because I think
we
when you look, do you know
now
the
where they're presumed guilty before being innocent.
Do you know
instead of
the-
other way
do you know what
round.
the actual-
that has been demonstrated. That is actually happening.
Are you aware of like the rate of women who accuse men of sexual assault versus the actual number of men who are eventually
doesn't that say that we should be more worried
Do you
about
think all those women are lying?
Are you
Is
not
it something
innocent
like
before
1%?
guilty?
I mean, this is the thing though, is that of all the accusations, statistically speaking, most of them are actually under the huge spike that's gone up of accusations with no conviction has been under 25s, and these are people that my generation that know they have cultural power by being able to accuse men of rape. I think a lot of it is fake.
all of it is fake? Like,
not all of it. No one's saying all of it. I think a significant portion are false accusations.
I know someone who works with men who are falsely accused. He works for something called Barnet Survivors, and he will say that what's happened is the increase in accusations and convictions has gone up for men who are basically innocent, okay? But from the expansion of sexual assault and abuse accusations and harassment, accusations, that they are basically innocent, right? But the actual, real, genuine victims who come forward, they don't tend to be believed.
Okay, can I ask you?
So he's saying that what's happened is it's doing the opposite to what it's supposed to be.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
This is someone who works in the field and works with men who are falsely accused.
Well, I don't know that. I've not seen that. I've not seen that evidence. Can I ask you a personal question? Do you know a woman in your life who's been raped or sexually assaulted?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know any rapists?
I like to imagine not.
Yeah.
No. If I knew them, I would no longer know them.
Well, I think this is the thing. Like, this is the thing. I think like half of my friends have been raped and stuff, and like they're not lying to me. They've never gone to the police. At least I would say, like, maybe you don't know because you're a bloke. You probably don't have the same conversations. But that's one of the reasons why I'm a feminist. As
you know what I know? I know various men.
So if they don't have any evidence, you can't just, because otherwise anybody can accuse anyone.
Yeah, but what's happening then? Who was raping these women? It's not like a thing that happens.
This is a relevant interruption. Sorry. I know various men who have been falsely accused of sexual assault.
I've been falsely accused of sexual assault, and I
This is one of them actually. I know more than one. I know more. I can count more of them on my one hand. I know more than 5 men. So I'm just trying to say that a lot of women are sexually assaulted, genuinely, but then there are a lot of men who are falsely accused, and there are incentives for women to do that these days that didn't exist in the past.
Do you think so? Because when I see like women come forward and stuff, everybody just basically says they're a liar. Like the actual process of trying to get justice. The media. Look at all the way that the victims of Harvey Weinstein were treated by the media. They were told that they were doing it for money. They were making it all up for like many years.
I agree. Harvey Weinstein's a horrible person.
I saw a mixture of both going on with that.
You know, I mean, I don't know about you.
I didn't see anyone that actually thought Harvey Weinstein.
If somebody,
I don't know anyone that thinks Harvey Weinstein is innocent.
I mean, I agree fully with you.
Even men's rights activists, they don't think he's innocent. Okay.
He's clearly guilty.
They got endless coverage. You know, they got interviews. They got to speak at the UN. They got to speak at the Global Awards.
Which is
all
right.
of these things.
What about Asia Argento? What's her name? Again? Amber, not Amber Heard.
Amber Heard.
Go there, yeah. The other, is it Asia Argento? I can't remember her first name. Do you remember her first name? Asia Argento, right. She got accused of, are you listening? She got accused of sexual assault of a underage boy.
Yes, I think I heard about that.
How did the media treat that case?
I wasn't following it at the time.
What interesting
one is so they did not cover that case in the same way they covered Harvey Weinstein in any capacity.
Yeah, but it was not the same thing. Like Harvey Weinstein was a serial abuser who abused like women for
wait for the moment.
years and years and years. So
Where are they? What is it to do with you? Because you said you're a single parent. Your kids should be here with you. Isn't that right? He said.
Other people, they might.
So who's taking care of your kids?
You're asking a question. You have to answer.
You have to answer, man.
I don't have to. Okay.
Anyway, you take me down the garden path.
Don't ask question.
Here we go. You don't want it. I'm glad you're refusing it. Because
I just don't want
you see how he thinks. I'm not refusing. I just don't want it. It's not blue, but it's not black.
No. I'll take it. I'll take it.
You sure?
I'm not refusing. One pound.
Oh, £1. No thanks.
No.
You don't own the pigeons? I can take a video of pigeons.
No.
That'll help him out. He's nervous.
Go on now.
God. You just lost your balls. Why are you here? What's the purpose of your march today, in general?
So these questions now, they are transphobic. What is a woman? What is a woman's space? What are women's rights? They are now, because they exclude men that call themselves women, we're called bigots and transphobes.
Okay.
So I don't think you can change sex. And even if you have all the processes and the medicalisation and the surgeries, I still don't think you're a woman.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I actually do. Yeah. But
Most people do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a biologist, and it's kind of easy. But you might disagree.
It
looks like an identitarian.
Well, the thing is, right, most of us appreciate what those things mean when it comes to specific situations. So, for example, I've got a 13-year-old daughter. I would like her to have the right to go into a female space and not see a man and not experience a male presence in a female space. And I don't think that you are a female unless you're born female. And so I want women in prisons to be able to not have to serve their time with a sex offender who's offended against women in a women's prison.
And does this count for people who've had gender reassignment?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, no, this is for my personal file.
Absolutely. I don't think you can do. All right, what pub? Oh, okay. Oh yeah. So I just think like you can do everything, and you still don't really. A lot of those men are motivated by a sexual fetish. So even if they remove everything, I think we should help individuals, right, who experience genuine something called gender dysphoria, which I think is a bit of a misnomer and a bit of a psychological issue. I think they should be helped with counselling and therapy, not surgeries. But I'm far more interested by the women that are affected by this, not by the men. You know, my priority is always going to be a woman in the situation of protecting a woman's space. It's not going to be the man that thinks he's a woman. Not really interested in how he needs to be validated. It's not my place to validate that man by allowing him to come into women's spaces.
Just a point, would the same apply in the opposite way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are girls that call themselves boys that go on residential trips with schools that have been sexually assaulted. You know, and then there are girls that go on residential trips where there's boys in their rooms because those boys say they're girls, and then those boys are very inappropriate.
Another point, because he's not asking anything. I did have whatever. So you're saying about a female-only space. I think that's a valuable thing to have. Now,
do they kind of accept this position, or are you kind of?
I think a lot of women have. I think Orwell talked about young women in particular being the enforcers of this newspeak and groupthink.
Taken over the movement.
Yeah,
well, you've been building it for ages. You just come in and ruin it.
He sort of specifically talks about young women. I'm very interested in the phenomenon where young women go along with this idea that you can identify as women. Because I think as you go through your life as a female, and I can only speak as a female because that's what I am, when you go through your life as a female, then you don't really have a choice on how other people perceive you. None of us do. You know, I'm a white woman, so people will see me, whether I like it or not, as a white woman. I could do everything in my power to try and alter that, but the fact still remains that that's what I am. Okay.
Do you think your message could be separated out from a feminist message? It should just be a general message for everyone?
Well, I'm not a feminist. I do say that repeatedly that I'm not feminist, but you know, I owe many of my rights. I owe the fact from feminist work in 1974 that if my husband buggers off and leaves me, that I actually still have rights to my house, and I have rights in the workplace. Yeah. You know, I think I owe feminism a debt, but I don't identify as one because I don't feel the things that I'm talking to, it's not useful.
In terms of, say, keeping women scornful women, stop puberty blockers for children, that doesn't have to be a feminist message, does it?
No, I don't think it should be a feminist message. I think it's common sense, normal, let's not totally pull the rug out of reality and society message. You know, and I don't feel this should be a women's fight. It is a women's fight because we're the most adversely affected. This is a fight for everybody.
Do you think a lot of people pushing this agenda maybe are just a bit young and immature and had their brain addled at university and they might grow out of it?
I do think that the struggle in academia is interesting because I think they've paved the way for this.
Do you think universities have gone downhill?
Do I?
Universities.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's there's a woman that wrote a book all about feminism, and now she talks about how trans women are women. And I don't really understand the cognitive dissonance. When you talk about the same women that go on and on about Me Too, even the minor infringement of someone touching your knee, women that talk about that as some sort of massive sexual assault on women, Me Too, then also say trans women are women.
Were you here last year when a trans woman assaulted an actual woman?
Yeah, I was. Maria McLaughlin, do you know what happened in her trial? She had to refer to that man as a woman, and because she didn't use the pronoun she got no compensation from violent assault.
Oh my God.
And then we've got another woman that was just criminalised, she was found guilty, because she basically did some tweets. I've been interviewed twice by the British police for saying that you should not transition children. So I've been interviewed twice under caution by the police and told that if I didn't attend an interview, I couldn't leave the country. I couldn't, if I was driving, I'd be arrested and they'd bring me in for questioning. And if I didn't attend the interview, they'd come to my house and eventually arrest me.
Do you think that maybe in 20 years' time that people are going to look back at this and think, what were we thinking? What have we done? Like to these a generation of confused kids.
I'm hoping that what happens is the people that have contributed to this will be bankrupted into obscurity. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have lawsuits coming, and they are going to absolutely annihilate the health service.
A lot of kids that are transitioned, I've seen, on YouTube that they regret it. They deeply regret it.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
Interview with that person.
Benjamin Boyce?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does a lot. He does a lot. And even people like Ariel, can't remember her name, Lesbian, she's got about 600 subscribers, Garcelle. So she's been one of the people pushing this agenda, and then she found out that she wasn't pure enough, and now she's been cancelled. So it comes to everyone. The truth eventually will out. So,
Hopefully.
Anyway, I've got to go somewhere warm because I'm absolutely freezing. But nice to see you all.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, let me contact me via my.
Do you know anything about us?
I do know something about you. The most things I know about you are going to.
From the Labour.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah, so you might know a little bit. It's okay. I don't
quite
want...
intriguing that you're a black man talking to me about full Britain.
I know, but that's what I'm here. That's what I'm here for. I'm just wondering. I'm not here to, you'll know a little bit about us already. But I'd just like to. I'd like you to come and speak to everyone. Can I give you one or two bits just to tell us what we're about?
Yeah.
So then, if
you know, I'm really, really sceptical about your organisation. I'm going to say that.
All right, that's good. That's fine.
Okay.
But you might take one look at us and think, oh, I'm not going anywhere near that lot.
All right.
But we do support you anyway. And
okay.
I support it, not just do. So it's a very brief selection of our leaflets, and so I'm hoping you can come and speak to us at the London branch.
All right. Well, I won't take your hand in the coronavirus.
Yes, of course. But it was nice to see. Nice to meet you eventually.
Yeah,
and I'll just subscribe to your channel.
All right.
Take care.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
We need all the updates. They were probably sheepish about that, but they.
For me, the big thing about Make More Noise is as a 53-year-old woman who thought that my feminist things had been done, that actually I need to rise up for my lesbian and gay boys to rescue them from transitioning, basically, because we're seeing it now. It happened, almost happened to my daughter, and I'm really, really angry about it, because I think, yes, 0.02 of the population have gender dysphoria, and I really feel for them, but for the majority of people, that's not the case. What they're struggling with is what we've all struggled with, is gender, sexuality. My daughter saw photographs of me as a young woman, and she said, "Oh my God, Mum, you look the same." I said, "Yeah, because we were all gender benders. That's what we all did." And my mum said, "Yeah, that's what we all did in the 50s." And my gran, bless her cotton socks when she was alive, said, "Yeah, that's what we did in the 30s." Everyone has done this stuff. It doesn't mean that you are the opposite sex. And that's why I'm here, because I feel that we are funneling people up this avenue that they can't return from, and it's not going to happen on my watch. It's not going to happen. I've been reawoken as a middle-aged woman to come back and say it's not happening. 0.02%, I'm going to support that, but not what's happening now.
I just sent my mum the YouTube link for the live stream from today, and she says that she really liked all the speeches and she wishes she was here. So I told her to stick June the 21st in the diary, because Venice is planning the same but bigger, plus a picnic. Also, the fact that this pub is great and the landlord already knew who she was. So yeah, summertime, 4 or 5 times the size, I reckon. Yeah.